everyone, I'm Prerna from EduNirvana and I'm back again with the most important section of GRE verbal reasoning, and that is reading comprehension. If you really want to enhance your GRE verbal score, then start working on your reading comprehension skills, as it is one of the most significant and challenging sections of GRE verbal. Out of the 3 question types on GRE verbal reasoning section, that is text completion, sentence equivalence and reading comprehension comprises roughly 50% of the entire questions of the verbal section. Out of the 2 sections of 20 questions each, which is to be done in 30 minutes, the 50% questions are reading comprehension passages. That means roughly 50% of the entire question of the GRE verbal reasoning section. So, this is the reason why reading comprehension is supposed to be the most important section of GRE verbal reasoning section. Now that we have understood how many questions will be there of reading comprehension question, let's move on and find out how the questions look like and what should be the tips and strategies or the approach that is required to solve the reading comprehension questions. Now, let's go further and analyze the reading section or the reading comprehension questions on the GRE verbal reasoning section. As you know, there will be 10 passages and most of the passages will be just 1 paragraph long, and these passages will be drawn from varied places. They can be taken from periodicals, magazines or books on physical sciences, biological sciences, social sciences, arts and humanities. They can be from diverse subjects. It is not necessarily so that you have to be acquainted with the subject. You have to answer the questions based on the reading. Now, before moving on to the types of reading comprehension passages and the various kinds of questions that are there in the reading comprehension section, first look at the general tips or strategies or approach for the overall or the entire reading section. Number 1, do not read the passage first. Prior to reading the passage, go to the questions and read them cursorily and try to find out the keywords or the clues which will provide you some information about the passage. Now, with this information, move on to the passage and read the passage carefully and critically. Now, in the passage, the opening lines and the closing lines of the passage are extremely important. Also, the topic sentences or the first sentence of every paragraph is also important. These lines might give you essential information or the required information about the passage. Also look for transition words like moreover, however, in spite of, despite, although, conclusively, etc. Whatever information is given after these transition words is very, very important, and sometimes the question is taken from there as well. So, mark this information after the transition words. As far as the shorter passages or the critical reasoning passages or the argument passages are concerned, these are relatively smaller passages containing the author's argument or claim. The test taker is required to logically analyze this claim or the argument for the shorter passages or the critical reasoning passages, as the passages are very small, so the reading is particularly straightforward. You are required to read from one end to the other end. Take notice of each and every word, as each and every word is very important here and will give you vital information about the question. Also, read the question stem. One suggestion here is read the question stem before reading the passage, as you'll get to know what the question is all about. So read the question stem and then reread the passage and then visit the options and find out the correct answer. But this is not the case with longer passages. The longer passages are a bit long and of course abstruse or difficult to understand. So you have to be cautious and strategic. You have to read very carefully and critically. At the same time, you have to keep track of time as well, because you have to finish reading in reasonable amount of time. So in order to answer all the questions correctly, you need to understand what the passage is all about. Try to read critically and carefully and try to gather as much information as you can from the passage. For this, you can have a strategy which requires 4 stages. Number 1, skimming, scanning, speed reading and critical reading. While skimming, you should contemplate what is the meaning or purpose of the passage or what is the information that is provided by the passage. You should also ascertain and find out the central theme or the main idea of the passage. Besides, you should also separate the main ideas from the supporting ideas, and you should also test the relevance and strength of supporting ideas. While skimming, you should ask yourself pertinent or relevant questions like where this passage might have appeared in a newspaper article or a scientific journal, or where it could have appeared. Number 2, for what reason it must have been written. Number 3, what could be the title of this passage. And number 4, how can I summarize this passage. So, have a grasp over the passage before you move on to the answers. So, method number 1 was skimming, and method number 2 is read the passage. Read the passage carefully and try to jot down or make notes while reading. You can make notes on the scratch paper or on a piece of paper and you jot down the points. What are you going to jot down? You will be jotting down number 1, the main ideas in the passage. Number 2, the facts stated in the passage. Number 3, the key points or the vital information that is given in the passage. Number 4, the transition words. The transition words are extremely important. Whatever information is given after them often gives you a very strong clue in answering the questions. Method number 3 is summarize the passage. While reading and making notes, keep summarizing the passage. Keep gathering the important details and information and do not lose concentration while reading. If you lose concentration while reading, this technique will be very helpful for you. And the final technique is critical reading. Critical reading means reading with a purpose. You do not have to read as a passive reader. You have to read as a critical reader, as an active reader. You have to read the passage with a purpose. And the purpose is answering all the questions correctly. So if you'll employ this strategy and if you'll apply this approach, I'm sure you'll be able to crack the GRE reading section well. So this was all regarding the strategies or the approach that is to be applied while solving the GRE reading passages. I'm sure if you will adopt these strategies and if you will have this approach, you'll be sure to crack the GRE reading section. And that is all for this video. I hope you liked the video. If you have any queries, do write them in the comment section and please like, share and subscribe the channel. So that is all for today. See you then.